Whilst it might seem like a surprising contender for Game of the Year, Ghost Trick is definitely up there in the great adventure gaming pantheon. From the mind of Ace Attorney creator Shu Takumi, you play as Sissel, the disembodied spirit of a murder victim. Having left your body in the presence of your killer, you find yourself powerless to prevent his next heinous slaying. That is until you discover that as a ghost, with the powers of the dead, you can possess objects and travel back in time to 4 minutes before someone's death. This creates a sort of reversed Ghostbusters game, whereas a phantom who can only influence inanimate objects, you have to prevent anyone else from getting murdered, as well as solve the mystery of your own death. Ghost Trick has flat out the best animation I've seen on the DS. It's so gorgeous that it has to be seen in motion to be believed. Also along for the ride are its equally powerful character design and excellent score that will have you humming its tunes weeks after you put the game down. The adventure gameplay didn't disappoint either. Unlike most adventure games, the puzzles rarely become frustrating endeavours of trial and error. But what really deserves attention is the story. Even amongst adventure games that are often primarily designed to tell a story, Ghost Trick stands out as a genuinely gripping adventure that had me gasping at its twists and turns. When you get a year full of so many high quality titles as 2011, it's easy to forget about the smaller games that came out at the beginning of the year. Ghost Trick is a small title that didn't attract as much attention as it deserved, but it is nevertheless fantastic and deserves to be remembered as one of the best games of 2011. Batman Arkham City is proof that you can catch lightning in a bottle, twice. After the runaway success of Batman Arkham Asylum, expectations were astronomical for Rocksteady's follow-up to what most consider to be the seminal Dark Knight-oma. Expectations that have been met and overcome. The game gives you a sprawling section of Gotham City to explore, fight, and glide your way through. And what fighting there is. The combat in Arkham City is practically the definition of easy to learn, hard to master. It's also been made just that smidgen more accessible to the point where you'll look forward to unlocking a new challenge room, just so you can put your goon punching skills to the test. Rocksteady also managed to fix one of the more serious flaws in Arkham Asylum, by dramatically improving the boss fights. In true Batman fashion, while some fights will require use of the Caped Crusader's terrifying martial abilities, others will require you to make use of the Dark Knight's intellect to outsmart your foes. This all comes together to create a series of epic confrontations with an all-star collection of Batman's rogue gallery. Though as gripping as the main storyline is, the game is packed with side content, perhaps even too much so. There are an inordinate number of villains to track down, political prisoners to save, and of course, riddles to solve. Though the 440 Riddler trophies may have been going a bit too far. I mean, come on, Rocksteady, I do have other things to do. Still, Arkham City was clearly crafted by people who truly love Batman, and it shows, because perhaps more than any other medium, Arkham City makes you feel that you are Batman. The theme of improving on near perfection was a strong one in 2011, with a whole host of sequels to excellent games managing to improve upon the originals in subtle ways. Portal 2 is not quite the compact piece of storytelling and puzzling genius that its predecessor was, but the gain in length lets it tell a longer but equally brilliant story and introduce a whole new bevy of elements to the test chambers that make the puzzles with Portal even more mind-bending. When using a combination of portals, speed gels and bouncing gels, your brain may feel overly stressed, but the sensation of accomplishment and intellectual satisfaction when you solve a particularly vexing puzzle is second to none. Returning to the now somewhat dilapidated setting of Aperture Science, you find yourself once again in a dangerous escape that pits you against returning nemesis and all-round sociopath GLaDOS, and teamed you up with new companion Wheatley, brilliantly voiced by Stephen Merchant, and Aperture proprietor Cave Johnson, portrayed with a magniloquent mastery by J.K. Simmons. Portal 2 is in many ways the perfect package, combining an intriguing story, brilliant and genuinely funny characters, and truly exquisite puzzles. And that's not even mentioning the game's co-op, which adds another set of portals for puzzles about 4 times as challenging.
Quest chamber complete. Continue.
Well, we'll probably have to wait until Valve get off their arse and finish Half-Life 2 Episode 3 for another Portal game. So I think everyone should log on to Gabe Newell's Twitter page and protest. Or, no, maybe send him cups of coffee, or is there some sort of internet petition we could sign? Anyone? Bethesda is the de facto king of the open world RPG, and Skyrim is its finest hour. Leaving behind the drab and dreary post-apocalyptic world of Fallout, and returning to the beautiful, colourful land of Tamriel, Skyrim lets you explore the frozen north and home of the Nords. It's a world of endless fiction and limitless opportunities. It's a game where you can shout dragons from the sky, defeat Draugr with a sword in one hand and a fistful of fire in the other. It's a game where you can become a werewolf, a blacksmith, or a thief. It's the ultimate incarnation of Bethesda's open-world RPGs. It's a ridiculously large landmass full of more stuff to do and see than you could ever get round to doing or seeing. It's your dreams of living in a fantasy world come to life. You'll swap tales with friends of shouting giants off of mountains, summoning dragons to fight other dragons, or ending up in a bizarre medieval version of The Hangover. Skyrim is brimming with so much content that it's quite possible for people to spend 30 hours without having the same experience. If you ever were to reach 100% quest completion, a game with its Radiant AI system can just create new quests for you to do. Skyrim is an amazing accomplishment. Bethesda have crafted so many interlocking systems to create the most convincingly living world in a video game yet, and for once, it seems to have gone off mostly without a hitch. I've saved the world from dragons, been caught up in racial intrigue, jumped horses off of mountains, summoned the dead and assassinated the rich and powerful. I've spent more than 100 hours in the land of Skyrim, and even now, months after the game's release, I still feel it drawing me back in. Saints Row the Third was my biggest surprise of 2011. I didn't find the first two Saints Row games terribly appealing. They both seemed to be open-world games heavily influenced by GTA 3. And even when people assured me that Saints Row 2 was a spiritual successor to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, full of balls-to-the-walls insanity and absolutely no self-serious allusions to realism, I was still pretty sceptical. Well, I've never been so happy to eat my own words. Saints Row the Third is a fantastic game, one that practically redefines fun and insanity, in a world that's lost touch with what makes virtual crime sprees entertaining. It's the sort of game where within a half hour you've robbed a bank disguised as yourself, parachuted out of, back into, and then back out of a stricken airplane, shooting goons as you go, and then picked up a Predator missile controller and used it to decimate an army base. And the game only proceeds to empower you and put you in even more ridiculous situations from there. You fight zombies alongside former porn star Sasha Grey. You beat up crime bosses in a Tron-esque virtual world. You fight off an army of luchadors with a chainsaw while Joe Esposito blares in the background. And that's barely the tip of the iceberg. Even without its ridiculous and hysterical set pieces, Saints Row the Third is just damn fun to play. It's a great third-person shooter in its own right, and with its insanely tight vehicle handling, just getting around and shooting dudes is a joy. For a game that I had absolutely zero expectations for going in, Saints Row the Third turned out to be not only the biggest surprise of last year, but also the game I had the most sheer, unadulterated fun playing. And that's why it wins the coveted first annual Big Head Mode Game of the Year award. If the guys at Volition want, I'll email them a copy that they can print out and sellotape to their wall.